its family farmers.
Shane Arden.
Mr. Speaker, before I start my address on the Dairy Industry Restructuring Bill, I must declare an interest. As a family trust, I'm involved and own shares in Fonterra. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of discussion around the ownership structure of our dairy industry during this debate. I just want to put it on record as a dairy farmer and as someone who's followed this debate closely and as chair of the Select Committee, it is in the DNA of most dairy farmers that are shareholders in Fonterra to maintain 100% ownership in the Fonterra cooperative. And this is not just some ideology. It's not something that's just we think of because that's what we think should happen. It is actually based in sound economic and commerce, and that is that we produce a product that is very perishable at the time of its production. And so therefore, to be able to make sure to have 100% guarantee, if you like, through 100% ownership, that the processing, the transporting, the marketing and the exporting of that product is under the control of those that produce it. Because to trust someone else to do that, Mr. Speaker, would be a step outside of what has worked for our industry. But that said, when Fonterra was formed, it was a construct of legislation. It was the merger of three entities that brought together 90% of the milk production in New Zealand. And so there had to be a regulatory structure to allow that to happen. And if you study all international examples, you'll find very, very few structures anywhere with that type of dominance in a particular market or within a particular industry sector. So the bill is a compromise. It is a compromise. There is a compromise in what we are trying to achieve, and that is to allow free entry exit for farmers that wish to enter or exit Fonterra, and to make sure that they are able to enter and exit with their fair share of the capital that they both bring in when they become a shareholder in Fonterra and when they exit. The trading amongst farmers, which is much debated and maligned by some in this debate, received 66.45% of the milk solids shares in support of that concept. The bill does not compel it. It was enabling. It is enabling. It does enable the industry to do that. The industry came to government, as the Minister said, and asked for that. And the reason was because they identified $1 billion worth of potential redemption risk. Now, that was identified because their funders told them that's what they would discount or allow as a risk against the borrowing involved in the industry. So whether or not people agree with that, or whether they think that was overstated or understated, or whatever the view is, that is what the industry was confronted with. And I've heard a reasonable amount of discussion about the ability to retain earnings through retentions rather than pay them out to farmers and thereby overcome some of that redemption risk. And that's true. There is an ability to do that. But, Mr. Speaker, in a time of hard economics with high debt, a farmer cooperative that decides it's going to keep its own balance sheet in good shape and not look after its shareholder farmers is a cooperative that's probably on a slippery slope to oblivion, and the farmer shareholders certainly would make sure that that happens. So once again, it's not as black and white as others would have you believe. And in the 2008-9 year, when the redemption risk was real, Fonterra was confronted, first of all, with an international economic crisis. Not my words, words used by economic commentators around the world. And if you were to visit Europe at the moment, you would understand what they mean by that. They were confronted with a drought, Mr. Speaker, in New Zealand, which had the Minister of Agriculture at that time travelling the length and breadth of the country, declaring big parts of the country a drought zone. And they were also confronted with the Sunlu melanine poisoning in China, which Sanlu, the member corrects me, Sanlu poisoning of baby formula in China. Three major hits, you might say, on the integrity of what is a farmer cooperative the economic integrity of a farmer cooperative which prides itself in exporting milk and milk products with high quality and safety to the world. So there was a redemption risk, and it was real, and they needed to do something about it. And the result of that and the many discussions that have taken place since then is the construct of trading amongst farmers. Mr. Speaker, at this point I just want to thank once again the members of the Primary Production Select Committee. We were faced with a number of challenging issues. This is a complex piece of legislation. It covers a wide range of very difficult questions to answer, from where the Commerce Commission's involvement should stop and start, to where the limits on the size of the fund should stop and start, to the price of Fonterra shares versus the price of milk or Farmgate milk price. And these things are not easy to resolve, and certainly there will be no simple or silver bullet to resolve these issues. So the Select Committee listened to advisors, not only from within government, but independent advice was sought. We listened to the submitters, all of those that wish to submit to that Select Committee, and the team on that committee, Mr. Speaker, I believe had only one interest in mind, and that was the interest of New Zealand Inc., plus the protection of our largest company and the exports of our products to 150-odd countries in the world. Mr. Speaker, this is a very timely piece of legislation, and I support the passage of this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Call the Honourable Member Richard Prosser.